Hi, everyone. Let's see. All right, let's get started. What the heck? All right, I'm gonna get started. You guys can watch back on it. Go back and watch it. So we're gonna talk about what the law of assumption is. Um, so the law of assumption is a concept primarily taught by Neville Goddard. You guys can look him up. And it states, right? Basically, whatever you assume to be true becomes your reality, good or bad, because let's not get confused. It's good or bad, right? So here's a clear explanation. An assumption is belief, right? It is the mental state where you accept something as true even before you see proof in the external world. So even when we're thinking about negative things, a lot of times that's not even things that are happening, right? An assumption is literally something you're assuming to be true without proof, right? With law of assumption, what they teach you is the more you assume a certain outcome, positive or negative, it will become your reality, especially if it's mostly if it's your dominant thought. Let's go there. It has to be your dominant thought, right? So if you think something negative right now, doesn't mean that it's gonna come to fruition. That's not what this is. So basically your outer world reflects your inner assumptions. If you assume you're wealthy, loved, confident, and successful, and persist in that assumption without doubting it, your life, your your life circumstances will rearrange to reflect it. Now, even if there is doubt, there it is. You are taught. At least me is at least believing that you can have this positive outcome, right? So you don't have to believe in what you're saying, but at least have a belief that it is possible. It's hard to believe something happening that's not happening in front of you. I feel like a lot of times the belief doesn't come until afterwards. That's just my assumption. You can assume as you please, but that is the standard of it, right? So how it works, you form an assumption. An assumption is you can whether it's a belief, which is like an affirmation, or if you want to visualize. There's different ways to create assumptions, but mainly it is through affirming, right? An assumption is is, again, what you believe. Um, you persist in that assumption through imagination, feeling, and mental repetition. Again, mental repetition. To me, feeling, not everybody gets a feeling, right? But there are people that do. So I'm not gonna just dismiss that, because I know people that do affirm, or they'll visualize and they can actually feel things. They can use their senses, right? Um, but repetition, mental repetition, is going to be, again, whether it's affirming, scripting, visualizing, whatever it is. You what I've learned in my own journey is keep it simple. So if you're going to use affirmations, don't use 50 billion affirmations for just one. Like, let's just say it's marriage that you're trying to, or your person, right? You don't want to have 50 billion affirmations for it. Like, you want to condense them, because repetition, what happens to scientifically, and I'll talk about that later, but I could touch on it a little bit. Like, even scientifically proven, the more you repeat something to yourself, the more you open up a new neural pathway. And what happens is, when you do that, is it has no choice but to kind of show you what you're saying is true, right? Um, and then over time, reality conforms. Once you have this practice of, persisting in that assumption through, again, imagination, feeling, or or mental repetition, over time reality conforms to your inner assumption, because consciousness creates reality. Hi guys, whoever's in here, can you guys say hi, talk to me? um so, for example, if you assume I'm always rejected, you will continue to experience rejection. So, let me give you another example. If you assume I am loved and desired, your experiences will reflect being loved and desired. Um, I'm gonna get into core beliefs maybe in another video, but sometimes there are things that we are holding on to, especially based on experiences and I would say patterns. I always tell people, like, when I coach them, and everything is listed in the description, um, look at the patterns when it comes to your dating life. There's patterns, and then go to your childhood. There's patterns, right? So you want to kind of address those patterns so that you can address those core beliefs, where they're coming from. Um, Now, this is the part where I think people get a little tricked off at, is your imagination is God, right? Your imagination is your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is more, it's aware, so it believes whatever it's seeing. And where your subconscious mind, it believes whatever you tell it, right? So your imagination, which is your subconscious mind, is God, right? The creative power within you. And I'm not going to get into the Bible right now. We'll be here all day, but I'll get into that in another live. So they do say feeling is the secret. It is not just words or thoughts, but feeling your assumption as real, that it manifests. Do I feel like you have to have a feeling? I'm gonna say no, because I feel, again, like, until you get your, like, have your manifestation in your hand, sometimes a feeling doesn't come. Can What I will say, a feeling to have, I will say, is gratitude and excitement. I know, like, when I affirm and I do my saturation sessions, and I, do my routine, I tend to be in a calm energy. I try to, like, feel a little uplifted, like happy. I try to feel like gratitude. Those feelings that come with that, I try to do that, because I mean, you should at least be grateful. But does feeling come all the way? No, I don't. Like I said, I don't feel like that's accurate for anyone, but for everyone. But I do know that there is people that do get a feeling. And three, persist regardless of your current reality. Circumstances don't matter; only your assumption does. So whatever you're assuming to be true, as long as you're persisting in it and not thinking, talking, um, or doing anything against it, right? That's what you continue to persist until your reality changes to the way that you want. This is why it's important to be mindful of your thoughts, and of the patterns, and of, like, so Neville Goddard used to use this phrase called the dying of the old man. It's not literally an old man dying, but it's your old self, like, dying, right? So your old self, what happens is, when you start creating new assumptions, especially if you haven't experienced this kind of stuff. So let's just say you've never been wealthy, you've always had, money problems. When you start assuming that you're wealthy, that you're rich as fuck, that whatever, right, that money comes to you easily, your old self is going to try to prove you wrong, right? Because it's trying to protect you. That's your conscious mind. That's your ego. You have to keep overdriving, like override that, because it will show up, okay, in a negative way. Not always, but I do feel like it's gonna fight back for sure. You just gotta, show it that no, you are the creator and you're deciding what the truth is now. And the more you persist on this, again, there's an unfolding, and I'll get into that soon, where that happens in order for you to get your manifestations. Does that happen with all manifestations? No, there's going to be certain things that you're going to be able to manifest overnight. You just say it one time, that's it, right? Because you may have like a really strong, good belief behind it. So, if we, all right, so let's apply law of assumption step by step to an area you want to shift, right? So, you want to first choose that desire, right? Choose that desire now, whether it's a relationship with your specific person, whether it's self confidence, like self concept, which is confidence, beauty, worthiness, right? Your money in abundance, a healthy body, or just health, or a certain shape of your body, business or career success. You decide, right? So you get intentional. You decide, what is it that I want. So let's just say it is, most people come for SP. So let's say it's an SP. What is your end goal with them? If it's marriage, we can jump right into the end goal, right? So what what do you want to assume as true about this area? So again, if it's your SP, for example, I want to assume that my SP loves me deeply, or I want to assume that money flows to me effortlessly, right? Just get clear, right? And once you tell your chosen area and desired assumption, from there you can start to create your affirmations, or how to script. I For me, law of assumption is basically more about repetition of affirmations. It is the easiest thing because you're thinking all day. So if you're thinking all day, what you're doing is you're just kind of, they call it reprogramming. You're putting in new assumptions. Assumptions are, again, phrases that you're telling yourself. So, and you want to do it in the present moment. Give me one second. Excuse me. Hi, who's in here? Say hi. So again, I'm going to repeat this. What is law of assumption? What you assume to be true becomes your reality, right? Your assumptions are beliefs and mental acceptance. All right, I'm back. Hi. All right, I'm back. Hi to anyone who's in here. So back to what I was saying. These assumptions create and shape your external world because consciousness is the only reality, and your outer world reflects your inner state. The key principles of law of assumption. I did go back a little bit because I skipped the whole part of my sheet. Um, One, consciousness is the cause. Your inner world, thoughts, beliefs, assumptions, feelings creates your outer experiences. Two, they say feeling is a secret. Okay. Again, I'm gonna repeat that. If you feel something good, if you don't, it is what it is. It'll come later, right? Um, I would just say try to get into the energy of um using your senses when you're manifesting, right? Especially when you're consciously awake. Persistence, right? Persist in the assumption of your desire being fulfilled regardless of what the 3D, basically the physical world, the physical reality shows you. Circumstances don't matter. It doesn't matter if you're trying to um manifest like thousands of dollars and your bank is at a negative. It doesn't matter. Just keep affirming, and obviously you're not going to do things in your 3D that keep you in that energy. If you have to work, you need to go work. But what I'm saying is continue to assume that you already receiving thousands of dollars, right? um Remember that everyone is yourself pushed out. So a lot of people don't realize that when you're interacting with people in the 3D world, they're only acting out in the way you perceive them, or in the way you perceive certain things. So let's just say, I'm going to use this example. I heard it a long time ago. You were out today and a man in a red shirt acted like a jerk, right? You don't remember his face, you don't remember anything, you just remember he had on a red shirt. Then the next time you come in contact with another man with a red shirt, and he kind of acts like an asshole. Now you kind of have like this one assumption that men in red shirts are assholes. So I know that's a stupid example, but you create your assumptions as you go and as you experience life, right? So if you've been cheated on before, then and you've been cheated on multiple times, then you're going to carry that into some new relationship. So you want to try to change those assumptions. What's another one? You've never been chosen. You want to change that assumption too. So that's why I said in the beginning of this, like, go back to your patterns, because there's a pattern. If you're always attracting men that are unavailable, there's a pattern that you need to address. There's a core belief within you. There's something, an assumption within you that is attracting these people towards you. You don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. So remember that. That's what everyone is you push out is. So basically, your assumptions about people influence how they show up in your reality. I'm going to use another example. If you assume someone is cold towards you, they will reflect that assumption. If you assume they love and adore you, they will reflect that instead. So you decide how someone is going to show up in your life. You're the deciding factor. And then the power of imagination. So, with the power of imagination, this is your imagination is the creative force, right? When you imagine something and you persist in it, you will experience it in the physical reality, right? So keep that in mind. So again, how to apply it: define your desire, be clear, be intentional. Um, yeah, just be intentional. Make sure that it's something that you want and it's not based out of ego. To me, you can manifest whatever you want. I just feel like when people are doing things out of ego, they're trying to they're trying to fulfill like a emptiness inside of them, and what happens is lack starts to show up. It becomes a little harder, and this is just my experience from watching people do this. Um, and they're in this anxious where they may not notice, but they're trying to make something happen to fulfill that space, right? Create your assumption, which is your in the present tense as well, because this is something that people kind of mess up. Like they'll be like, I'm getting my job, uh or like, I'll be working in my ideal job soon. You're just pushing that out to the future. Whereas if you assume like, I am already in my ideal job, my ideal career, then you're assuming that it's happening right now. So the chances of it coming in even faster are there. Have people manifested with future tense? Yes, but again, I feel like it keeps your manifestation in the future. Assume it as true now, right? So you want to assume, imagine what you would see, hear, feel, think if this were already your reality. Feel the relief, gratitude, confidence, and love it brings, right? To me, again, gratitude is a good thing to have. Being confident that you're the creator of your reality. And the next thing is persist in the assumption. So whether mental repetition, which is affirmations. Another thing that people use is the state akin to sleep, which is imaginal scenes. Keep those short, 10 to 30 seconds. Um, and then living in the end. What is living in the end? Thinking, feeling, behaving like the version of you who already has it. So if you're living in the end means, if you're assuming that you're making thousands of dollars a day, you're not going to be waking up every single day to talk, think, feel, or address anything that has to do with being broke. Okay. And why does this work? Because reality is a mirror of your consciousness. So whatever you're storing into your consciousness is what you're going to be experiencing. That's what you've been experiencing. When you change your inner state, basically your assumptions, you are changing the cause and the effect, basically the physical reality. I'm sorry, and the physical reality has to follow. Um, I'm trying to think of anything. So doubting, things that could block, and I don't really like to talk about blockages or anything like that, but things to be aware of: doubting because you don't see it yet. You have to forget about the 3D, because the 3D is just catching up. The solution: return to the feeling of your assumption being true. Remind yourself it is done in imagination first, and then it hardens into fact. So as long as you're keeping your mind and your assumptions straight and not doubting or like not spiraling, you're in a good place. Um, Feeling desperate or needy. Um, I'm the type of person, when I want something, I'm obsessive. Like, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to get it, and I don't care what's in the way. Like, it's gonna be moved. But there's a difference between persisting, which is that's I say I'll obsess over it, but I mean persist in doing what I have to do, right? Where obsessing in a negative way, or being desperate, is literally, I was saying, hyper focusing. Like, let's say you're affirming today, and then tomorrow you're just checking to see where is that. That's a little desperate. What's another thing? Being needy, like spending your whole day just focusing on this. Like, this is the only thing you think about. Now, I know when it comes to relationships and stuff like that, you're gonna think about yourself, but you want to change those thoughts in that second, in that, like, as they come in, right? Because you're gonna have little things that come up. You want to make sure that your thoughts are aligning with your desire. And another problem is reacting to 3D circumstances, right? See the 3D as old news. Keep your inner world aligned with your assumption, and forget what the 3D is showing. Again, it is old news. And as long as you're persistent, and this is for the people who are actually doing the work, all right, you're actually persisting. You're not sitting around talking bad about your manifestations. You're not entertaining BS stuff. You're not playing around with the 3D and trying to move pieces in the 3D. This is for people who are legit practicing their their law of assumption, and they're actually doing what they need to do. You don't need to worry about the 3D, because the 3D is going to align at some point. A lot of times what happens when we start manifesting, or we start assuming new assumptions, you're gonna have old shit spilling out. That's what's called a bridge. They call it a bridge of events, or they call it a purge. It could be whether it's emotions, whether it's like seeing some shit in your 3D that's opposite. You want to persist through that. Um, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That's like a basic. That's like a quick like description of what law of assumption is. Um, just remember, if you desire it, creation is already finished. So all you have to do is align yourself to that. And how do you do that? Persisting, assuming, um, affirming. But again, you have to put the work in. You cannot be lazy. If you're being lazy, and like I said, if you think you're gonna affirm today and tomorrow your manifestation is gonna be there, can that happen? Yes. But if it's not there, what you can't just sit and cry about it. Just keep persisting until it shows up. That's all it takes. Your assumptions, consciousness, and unconsciousness direct all thought and action to their fulfillment. So just remember that, to be diligent, do what you have to do, and stop being lazy. So if no one has questions, I'm gonna head out.